Yo guys, welcome to the video. This is the last soul bender coming at you, not live because this is pre-recorded, but basically, as you can tell by the title of the video, I'm going to be talking about known occultists in hip hop, and a big one I would say is Blade. As you can tell by the thumbnail of this video, I got a couple of examples throughout the video, so let's get into it. Um, to start off, we have this picture of Blade standing in front of a TV screen where you can see he's pointing up and down. This is basically modeling the pose that the Baphomet does, which is alluding to the concept of as above, so below. Blade has significant ties to numerology. If you look at his album 333, this is an obvious nod to numerology. And numerology is basically the belief that numbers hold a spiritual significance. It's composed of 9 single digits, but it's more than just numbers, it's actually an ancient system. And when you see the digits in a triplet or repeating like that, it's often a nod to a phenomenon known as angel numbers, where people report seeing numbers repeating like 1111, 444, or 888. Usually accompanied by some sort of awareness, or it just happens in a sort of synchronistic fashion, may show that these numbers are actually more than just math. Off the top of my head, I can think of Juice WRLD, who was known for using the number 999, as well XXX had a song off his Question Mark album called 888. More on X later. In numerology, the number 3 is a really significant number. The number 3 holds a lot of significance for cultures across the world as well. In Christianity, you have the 3 in 1 Godhead, the Trinity. As well, there's this picture for red light where you can see that it's kind of like this chord gesture. I'll get more into that later. But the gesture has 3 points on his hat. There's also the cycle of birth, life, and death, past, present, future, mother, father, child. Essentially making up a unit, it is considered the number of completion in this branch of knowledge. I mean, you can find all sorts of different meanings for the number 3 all over the internet, but there's no doubt that numerology is an occult branch of knowledge. Blade's song 3 Star You Reunite with Ty Boy Digital, for example, expands even more on his affinity for the number 3. I wonder if the 3 stars is a reference to Orion's Belt, which is a constellation that throughout ancient cultures has held a specific significance. There's the mythos of the warrior Orion. As well, it was said to be the resting place for the Egyptian god Osiris. It also holds significance in Native American cultures as well. I wonder what the significance for Blade is for this, but I'm going to expand more with this trickster angle, and this is a nod to his album, The Fool. The whole album, for example, is a complete nod to occultism. It's even evident in the title. In tarot, there is what we call the major arcana. This consists of 22 cards that come with their own respective archetype and image. The first card in the major arcana is the Fool. This is where Blade gets the title for the aptly named album. The Fool represents new beginnings, free-spiritedness. It's basically what happens when you take a leap of faith. It's kind of like just being carefree, living your best life. And although it might seem ironic, the Fool is actually one of the most powerful cards in the whole deck. I think that's why this album feels so emotional yet hopeful at the same time. It just kind of gives off this vibe of turning over a new leaf, new beginnings, springtime. Also, Lucy is a producer whose work is all over this album. He's actually part of the Esoteric Elusive Producer Collective, Rip Squad. That's verbatim what it says on the Genius.com website. And although apparently esoteric is often used to describe their music, I couldn't find anything about them actually being occult practitioners. I actually saw these guys live, by the way. They were touring with Blade and did a whole DJ set before coming on stage. They're pretty good, and I'll give them that. If you look at his profile picture on the site too, it looks like some sort of a nun maybe, or a saint even perhaps. They're frequent collaborators with Blade, and I'm actually not surprised given that Blade dabbles heavily into this stuff. As well, you have a song from Blade, one of his singles, My Magic is Strong, one of his earlier works. I'll play a clip of it right here. I really think that this is alluding to the fact that Blade is a known practitioner of magic, and he's not even being too elusive about it. Blade often uses chord gesture imagery and refers to himself as the Joker, which ties into the album being named The Fool, as the Fool in tarot is often associated with the trickster archetype. The trickster is a mischievous, roguish figure in mythology and folklore who uses cunning abilities to outsmart those who are physically stronger or more powerful. These characters often break taboos and subvert rules, blending cleverness with foolishness and acting as both a creator and a destroyer. Famous examples include the Norse god Loki, as well as the Joker from the Batman saga. And, tying into the whole Batman thing, here's a song off well, it's really a single, really. Gotham City, where he says, "You're a Joker, I'm the Joker," kind of tying more into the whole Joker motif. He has lyrics from the song Trendy, "Pull a Joker card on you, I didn't mean to startle you." off of I'm Goofy, which is a title off of Red Track. He says, I'm a pain to smile, it's a disguise, I finesse you twice. I believe this ties into the whole trickster angle. It's like Blade is awakened and we're in a world full of drones, and he's able to do what he wants musically and profit from it in a way that most people aren't able to. One might even say he feels like he's kind of making light of life, if that makes sense. Now I'm going to get into the whole duality thing with Drain Gang here. On the track off the album For the Fool, on Ego Baby, he raps, I try to tell them about the night, they didn't understand. I try to show them that there's beauty and there's magic in the air. They didn't understand, there's shadow in the light. Open up your mind, there's no day without the night. So here Blade is basically talking about duality, night and day, dark and light, and that there's beauty in each of them, which basically he's talking about the esoteric concept that everything is whole and complete, as above, so below, that sort of thing. This is also reflected in their name, Drain Gang, and their motto, Loss and Gain. To drain is essentially to lose. The concept basically means that when you lose, you gain something, and when you gain something, you lose something as well, and these are in a constant flux. In the video for the song, you see for Ego Baby, he's standing on what looks like an infinity symbol, and Blade is sitting with another version of himself, which I can only believe is his past self. I feel like the infinity symbol is a nod to the fact that Blade understands that he's eternal in the sense that even if he dies, his soul will go on existing. So it's basically just never ending. This is just my personal interpretation, but knowing Blade, nothing is just coincidental. There's definitely a secret meaning behind it, and the infinity symbol is pretty obvious nod because it's a loop, it just goes on forever. To support this, you have lyrics from the same song, Eons at a Time, Never Die Forever. I'm in your mind if you think about me sometimes, baby, where he's basically talking about if he lives on even in memory, that makes him immortal. Now, Blade has some sort of affinity for this saint, which is a patron saint of England named Saint George. He raps on the title track for The Fool, Saint George, there's demons in me, kill, kill, kill. If you know anything about Saint George, he was a saint who was known for slaying a dragon. Now, this is just a legend, and like most legends, it starts off as a true story and then becomes a legend as time goes on. But he was known for slaying this dragon, and the devil, or demons in the Bible have often been tied to this dragon imagery. So it makes sense that Blade is saying basically, "Come and kill these demons that are in me." Now, the true story of Saint George is about a Roman soldier who was jailed for his disobedience to the Roman Empire. He was protesting the treatment of Christians under the time before it was the state religion. Basically, he disavowed his religion, and he was killed for this, essentially, making him a martyr. There's a national holiday for him in England. It's celebrated on the 23rd of April of each year. Also, Blade even titled a EP that released last year called St. George, the Beautiful Martyr First Attempt. If you look at the cover art for this, you can see St. George's name displayed all over it. In the intro for The Fool, you can even get a quick glimpse of the statue of St. George. So could this be Blade's favorite saint? I think so. I even have a chain of this guy, which I got at the concert where they made it merch. So I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the whole Trash Island theory. I highly believe, and most people will agree with me that know anything about this stuff, that Blade is a Gnostic. And for those who don't know what Gnosticism is, it's a diverse set of ancient religious and philosophical beliefs, primarily from the 1st to 5th century, centered on the idea that salvation comes through secret divine knowledge to liberate the spirit from the evil material world created by a lesser flawed deity, the demiurge, not the true supreme God. So this is kind of juxtaposed to the whole Christianity thing where, the world is created by a benevolent, loving God. Gnosticism is basically saying that the world is in chaos because it's created by this evil, lesser flawed, not complete deity. I believe the whole Trash Island motif is a metaphor for the world, an evil material world, and like a diamond in the rough, Blade shines. In the video for Apple, you can see him picking up a chain from a dumpster, like he's crowning himself king of the Trash Island. The chain even says Trash Island. And another example I'll throw out is this lyric from Gotham City where he says, fingers cut on the paper. He's talking about making a blood sacrifice. I'm going to spin the dreidel even if it's fatal. He will take his chances no matter what the cost is to get what he wants. Now, more lyrics from The Fool. He goes on to say, dreaming, dreaming, dreaming in a dream. I believe this is from Baby. He's talking about the unmanifested. Blade is living in a dream of his own creation, but it's a reality that he's created. Okay, for this next example, I'm going to bring up Lil Tracy. And if you know Lil Tracy, he was a collaborator with Lil Peep, and he was part of the now famous Goth Boy clique, very big in, 2016 to 2018. Anyway, some examples include Lil Tracy's former stage name, Soldier Witch. He even has a song with Lil Peep called Witchblades, which is one of their bigger songs. Has a song called Witchcraft Shawty. frequently references witchcraft in his songs. He has another song called Voodoo and a recent song that came out called Wicca, which is just another word for witchcraft, essentially. From the song Witchblades, he says, witchcraft, love chants, whisper in my ear, put me in a trance. Another song called When I Left Heaven. Could it be talking about Lucifer's descent from heaven? Could be, maybe not. He says, Soldier Witch, I'm gonna cast some spells now, cast some spells now. Demons used to be on me, but I'm so blessed now. I was married to evil, but that's my ex now. He goes on to say witchcraft spells booming off the Samsung. There's this random post on Reddit of a user claiming to have known Tracy before the fame, claiming that before he blew up, he wanted to get into witchcraft because a collaborator of his, 90s Bambino at the time, was into it. I don't know how credible it is, but here's the post as well. I did some research on this 90s Bambino guy. So I did a quick Google on this Bambino person. Not sure what their pronouns are because I read a post that they refer to themselves as he/she. But given that that covers both genders, I think we're good. This post is another person claiming to know 90s Bambino and that they faked illness and even death for sympathy in the past. If I'm able to find the post, I'll put it up so you can see the proof. According to the post, they may or may not have been in a coma after all. I'm not even going to pretend I know all of the lore behind GBC. I started listening to Peep and Tracy in like 2017. And if you know anything about Peep, this was the year that he passed, sadly, rest in peace. But if it can't be verified, then we'll just have to leave it at that. They may or may not have been in a coma after all. So whether or not there was a curse placed on Goth Boy Click because of 90s Bambino, like the last user suggested, it could really just be up to interpretation. Peep did die, but I believe it was because he had a bad case of pills. Everything else is questionable. I do believe curses are real, but I wouldn't go around saying everything is a curse without actually knowing what's up. Listening to this interview with 90s Bambino, I was looking to see if he mentions Lil Tracy at all and his ties to witchcraft. He did say that while Cloud Rap was blowing up, he was getting into making Witch House, which doesn't make you an occult practitioner by default, but I thought I'd note that. Bambino also claims that Peep and Tracy stole his swag, so maybe it's just more of an aesthetic thing. Tracy contacted 90s Bambino in 2013, well before they had blown up. According to Bambino, they have 10 or 15 songs together in the vault. I listened to the interview for about a half an hour. The interview was so long, I didn't care to listen to the whole thing. I was hoping the 90s Bambino could confirm that Tracy was actually involved in witchcraft at this point, but he seemed reluctant to even speak on their relationship at all. There's no verification of if Tracy was involved, but there's an interview with the Fader where Tracy basically says it's just more of an aesthetic. Yes, sir. All right, now we're going to pick things back up where we left off, and I'm going to be talking about XXX Tentacion. If you're surprised at all by this entry, then maybe you don't know as much about music and this stuff as you might think. I think X's story is pretty interesting. Not many people know that his manager used to be a guy named Bruno Diggums, who was actually an adult film star. I had to censor the name, obviously. When X was coming up with Ski Mask, he lived in a corn house with this guy, super seedy, this guy had an awful reputation. If you know anything about the corn industry, then you know that there's a lot of dark, wicked stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So I'm not surprised at all, given this guy's background. Apparently, in this corn house, they would invite corn stars over, have sex. There were drugs and rituals being performed. It's even reported that they had pentagrams under their beds and that Bruno Diggums was sacrificing girls. Crazy stuff. This guy Bruno had a really bad reputation. I mean, you could do the research yourself. Apparently, X even dyed his hair half blonde as a tribute to some goddess named Hecate or something. Not sure how true that is, given his hair had this sort of half moon look. Apparently, she has some type of ties to moon cycles. This is speculation, but a lot of people treat it like it's fact. I'll leave it up to you to decide. X started getting into old occult texts like the Kabbalion. He was very much into this type of stuff. He believed in the left-hand path, which is essentially Luciferianism, and I know a little bit about that because I used to be into this whole occult stuff. Even though to him it was never about worship, but about attaining some higher ideal. Apparently, the letter X corresponds to the number 6 in numerology. I was even able to verify this. So was this XXX kind of, giving a nod to his history, the whole stuff that went on in this, corn house? I always thought the XXX meant, sexual temptation, given that tentacion literally means temptation in Spanish. He would say demons would contact him, tell him things like when he was going to die and so forth. There's even this song, I Spoke to the Devil in Miami. He told me everything would be fine. Look at what this girl had to say about what went on in Bruno's house.
They're doing like brujeria.
Apparently, they were getting into some really weird stuff, ritual sacrifice, that sort of thing, but it's clear that XXX was deep into the occult at this point. Here's some lyrics from I Met the Devil in Miami. Took a bite of your apple. Give me all you can offer. Now I'm trapped in a changing maze, setting my soul ablaze. Couldn't control the pace. Where's this going? Hey, heartless is recklessness. It's word of a pacifist to word of a masochist. I'm off of the app. My lord, I spoke to Baphomet. He said he would save me if I gave him one thing he needed. What is this thing? I pleaded. Boy, it's the key to even. The bite of the apple is obviously referencing Adam and Eve and the fall of man. Changing maze, i.e., he's lost. He's offering basically his soul, which is his most prized possession, in order to gain worldly pleasures. And at the end of the song, it goes on to repeat the words anime vestra, which means your soul in Latin. So here's some more lyrics. And as I spoke, my fangs were shown. Taken aback, he smiles and tells me what you crave will soon be yours, but what I crave is already mine. And a lot of people think that X sold his soul. I'll leave that up to your own interpretation. I'm just trying to give you these, little bits of evidence so you can kind of come up to your own conclusion. X can even be heard on a call in jail praying to a deity named Hecate, goddess of witchcraft, crossroads, darkness, and wisdom. I don't know what religious line of thinking this comes from, but he goes on about making a sacrifice.
Hecate, goddess of crossroads, darkness, witchcraft, wisdom.
You also have this post from Slum God where he basically says that X was trying to sacrifice him for fame or something like that. And a lot of people say, Ski Mask was just salty that X was blowing up and he was kind of leaving him behind. This is when there was kind of a rift between them. And then when X started to turn his life around, they kind of got back together again. I'll leave this up to your own interpretation, but I don't think Ski Mask was just doing this for clout. There was obviously something going on behind the scenes. And this is off of The Boy with the Black Eyes. The evolution is near. The brains will start to abandon their religions and believe in themselves, and the new world order will start. So did X know of some type of ultimate plan for the world before he died and he was trying to warn us? This begs the question, It is interesting, though. Here's some more lyrics. When dark at night, that's when I do my searching, and the Antichrist is in my mind, the evolution's lurking. Let's not forget this creepy XXL freshman cypher clip that went viral a couple years back.
And if the world ever has an apocalypse, I will kill all of you fuckers. Fear will be plentiful, death will be bountiful. I will spare none of you peasants. Fuck your religion, your pastor fuck kids and got sent to a prison in peace.
Now, we're going to talk about Jocelyn's past identification with the left-hand path. We also have to talk about his evolution. I think we all remember when X dyed his hair blue. Each color was like an arc in this guy's life, much like Lil Peep. He got the tattoo of a tree on his forehead, which I'm not sure if that's the tree of life or what that's supposed to mean. More on that later. We all remember those live streams X used to do talking about expansion through creation, alchemy, universal laws, spiritual growth, and evolution. These are some of my favorite talks ever. It's clear that X was on a very different path at this point. I think he had just seen too much, probably knew too much at this point, was trying to turn things around before it was too late. Unfortunately, things caught up with him when some people met him at a red light and subsequently fired into his vehicle, leaving him dead on the scene. Apparently, the tree was meant to symbolize no attachments, free of burdens, much like trees lose their leaves in the winter. We all lose, but loss is gain, much like Drain Gang, but the leaves will eventually sprout again. I believe that's what the meaning behind the tattoo is. It's clear the tattoo had a special meaning for him, but X didn't care to elaborate on it too much. Now, I can already feel the Cardi glazers coming from me with this one, but I gotta bring up Playboy Cardi. This is a big one. You got these lyrics from one of his tracks, upside down cross tat on my neck, shut him up, upside down cross tat on my neck. He just goes on to repeat that. Playboy Cardi has several occult tattoos, as you can see in these pictures, the upside down cross being one of them. The upside down cross was formerly associated with the ministry of St. Peter, who was crucified upside down. He did not feel worthy enough to be crucified in the same manner as Jesus, so he petitioned that they, basically hang him upside down and they crucified him. But the symbol has been used a lot across cultures to mock God. If it wasn't more blatant, he has a cross ironically crossed out on his abdomen as well as the tagline Bad Religion. I think it's pretty clear that Cardi is not messing with Christianity or religion in general. I might say this is part of his rock star persona. I think it's deeper than that. Even as a Baphomet tattoo, a goat and a Wiccan star symbol, as you can see. There's a tattoo that says Satan as well on the back of his neck. I think he's tried to get it scrubbed out. And as well, you can see in this photo that there's like this pentagram sort of thing going on. I know it's in the shape of a heart, but does that make it any better? The whole lot of red merch drop leading up to the album was filled with this type of imagery as well. If I can find pictures of it, I'll post them here. It's funny because when you think of demonic rappers, Cardi's actually the first one that comes to mind, ironically. I think it's funny that the label is called Opium. Remember that phrase that religion is the opiate of the masses. If Cardi is so anti-religion, why would he name his label after literal opium? Could it be that he's trying to start a new religion or some type of cult with his fan base? If you pair it with the rebellious nature of the opium label's music, it all starts to make sense that Satan was literally the first to rebel against God. I think the mocking of God goes even further because why did Cardi drop Whole Lotta Red on Christmas? We all know this is Jesus' birthday, according to the tradition anyway. There's also a picture of label mate Ken with a pentagram tattoo on his chest. Not really sure, how far they're willing to go for this whole aesthetic, if it really is just the imagery thing, but I think this is kind of crazy. I wonder if Ken and Destroy Lonely were just going along with Cardi, being that, he's kind of an idol for them, or if this was just part of the aesthetic of the label. But Ken getting a literal pentagram tattooed on his chest convinces me otherwise. It might be deeper than music at this point. Here's some more pictures of Cardi. If you thought this was part of an album rollout, Cardi still has this type of imagery in his merch. Just check the website. There's also the snippets of his concerts where people report it feeling like some type of ritual. Energy never lies, guys. Remember that. I wouldn't be surprised if the people at these concerts were being harvested for their collective energy. I can already feel his fans coming for me in the comments, but if you remember old Cardi, he was never on this type of timing, only until after he blew up, and then suddenly it's all over the music. Kind of makes you wonder what happened between then and now. If you know what's up as well, you know that everything is vibration and frequency. Matter is just atoms vibrating, so music is frequency as well. You know how you tune a radio? So Cardi's been accused of using something called psychoacoustics. Music is so powerful that it can be used for the better or for worse. That's why there's this theory that it's been used as a weapon to mass control minds. It can be literal spellcraft if you're not careful. Psychoacoustics is basically the theory of how we perceive certain sounds down to a physiological and psychological level. Could Cardi actually be cognizant of this, or is this just kind of, something that comes by way of being in the studio? Okay, last but not least, we're going to get into A$AP Rocky. Now, if this surprises you at all, maybe you haven't been paying attention. You can see this picture of Rocky standing in front of what appears to be an American flag with the stars pointed upside down. Kind of makes you wonder why he went with that. Rocky claims to be spiritual and not religious. I feel like this is a common saying with people who have alternative views on spirituality, and he gets more into it in this interview.
I personally, man, I believe in God. I'm a I'm a man who fears God, and I pray to God, and I don't go to church that often. I'm not gonna lie, not because I'm not religious. I just don't got the time to. No disrespect. I pray to God every night. I have a relationship with God. I don't have to go to church every time. That's my Lord, and I got my relationship with Him.
Wherever two or more are gathered, that's where the Lord is anyway.
Right? You know what I mean? But most of the time, it's just me on my knees like this.
It's clear from the interview Rocky believes in a higher power, but he won't say what that higher power actually is. I'm not even surprised because apparently Rocky has lost quite a bit of people. Usually these types of traumatic events push people to do things that they normally wouldn't do, or to find answers in things they otherwise wouldn't look for. He lost his brother Ricky at the age of 13, as well as losing his father at an early age. More examples include merch with Masonic imagery. If I can find the pictures, I'll pull it up. If you know anything about the Masons, you know that they are very occult. Because of A$AP Yams, Rocky was able to link up with Space Ghost Perp, which was basically the catalyst to his career start. Now, I won't make a video on Space Ghost Perp, but he was part of the then famous Raider clan who drew a lot of inspiration from known occult practitioners 3-6 Mafia. I mean, it's in the name. Wouldn't be surprised if Perp rubbed off a little bit on Rocky. Pause. I remember Perp even had a song called The Black God, sort of aggrandizing himself. And usually with these occult practices, there's kind of this common theme of, basically seeing yourself as your own god and not having to look to anybody for answers. Now, I don't know if this is just more of a aesthetic for Space Ghost Perp, as a lot of people were kind of riding this wave at the time. I can think of a couple other artists. But it is kind of funny because he would later crash out and lose momentum, and Rocky's career took off. Not very godlike. And I'm not trying to come for SGP. I think a lot of his music is pretty solid. SGP's mixtape Blackland Radio 66.6 was full of occult themes as well, as even in the title. I'm not sure what his religious views are at the time. All I know is that Raider Clan was heavily inspired by 3-6 Mafia, who admitted to worshiping the devil in their songs. As well, you have Project Pat, converting to Christianity. Now he's a pastor, Pastor Pat. So, it kind of makes you wonder if, the stuff they were going through at that time was just so dark that he had to kind of just turn away from all of it. Apparently, in a now deleted lie by SGP, he says that Rocky originally got his start in music by meeting a guy, Calvin Klein, who had industry connects. There's also a tweet where SGP claims Rocky invited him to a party while some gay activity was going on involving Rocky. I'm not here to condemn gay people in any sense of the word, but we all know what these industry parties are like, and maybe Rocky was invited to do some things that he rather would have not done. What's even funnier is that SGP tweeted this in 2020. Why did he wait so long to expose Rocky? That makes the whole thing sort of questionable. Also, I don't want to write him off given his mental history, but I kind of want to say it may or may not have happened. At this point, he has nothing to lose, no music career to fall back on, so why even lie? Rocky was also affiliated with a brand called Black Scale full of occult imagery. It was sort of his branding. The clothing line eventually flopped, but I bet if it was promoted today with all these occult rappers, it would blow up. Apparently, he was like an ambassador for the clothing line. One Reddit user even said this. In the video for Peso, Rocky sports a blindfold. This is reportedly Masonic imagery to mean that you are not yet enlightened. I can think as well as to Young Thug's Slime season cover where there's a Greek god-looking statue with a blindfold and it looks like the eyes have been removed. This is, tied to the whole Mason thing. It's something known as hoodwinking. When you're first invited to the lodge, you're blindfolded. It's this whole symbolism, kind of like you're blind, you don't know anything yet, and you're still learning. Also, he raps on the song for Peso, she gonna really think if I'm hot, if I show her my degrees. Now, I never looked further into this line because I always thought that, degrees meant temperature, hot and cold. But digging deeper into the whole Mason thing, they use a system of degrees, 33 being the highest order, and I even confirmed this with a friend of mine who's a known Mason. So is Rocky alluding to the fact that he is in fact a Mason? Also, you have this picture of, a friend of A$AP Rocky in the Peso video where basically sporting an Aleister Crowley shirt. Aleister Crowley was huge into, occult practices. He was a huge practitioner of magic. And a lot of these people look up to him. Here's also this picture of, I think this is A$AP type beat sporting one of the Black Scale shirts, which is essentially a pentagram. Now, a lot of people say that Rocky sacrificed A$AP Yams for the fame, and even Ian Connor came out and said this recently in a tweet. If I'm able to find the tweet, I'll pull it up. I don't want to say this is the case. I really think that Rocky was a good friend of Yams, and basically, if it wasn't for Yams, he wouldn't even have a career, as he's the one that pointed him to SGP. A lot of this is speculation, but a lot of people say that the reason that Rocky was able to marry Rihanna is because she's some sort of handler, as Rihanna is very high up in the order of this whole industry thing. People even say that her famous song that blew her up, if you remember Umbrella, is a nod to a deity called the Rain Man that is basically a voodoo god. A lot of this stuff is speculation, but with everything coming out recently, is it really just conspiracy or is there more to it than that? Anyway, I'm going to conclude the video here. I hope you guys liked it. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends, share this with your family. This is my first video ever. I hope to make more series of videos. This is the last Soulbender. I'm out. Thank you.